Welcome to this session on training for ISO 9000 internal auditors. This video is brought by 3A Infotech for its customers and stakeholders. In this session, we are going to talk about process maturity and the connection between ISO management systems and audits. Uh, Process maturity is a multi-layered framework by which we can assess organizations where are they on different parameters. There is a process maturity framework for each dimension for quality and excellence. It's a similar one for security, continuity and resilience. So organizations can be measured where are they on this process maturity module, and in this we are going to talk how audit is the starting point of this journey. um, through through systematic audits and continuous improvement, organizations will move from one level to another level on the process maturity model. So that's what we are going to take you through in this video session. Next, let's focus on audits, which is the core topic of this training program. So, what is an audit? Audit is a systematic evaluation of whether or not processes are adhered to and whether or not those processes meet the requirements of the standard. So, the standard has got various requirements. Um, these requirements need to be complied with when we implement the management system at a process level and going below at every transaction level. Now, whether the processes are complying with these requirements or not, that has to be assessed, and the systematic evaluation of that compliance is called audit. Um, Next, we need to see when how do you do the audit and what is the process of the audit, and uh, what are the findings. So when we do an audit, the audit it should be done as per a audit criteria. So audit criteria is the standard. The standard tells you what to look for, and when we do the audit, we will be looking at certain findings, and those findings will be have to be based on objective evidence. So that is called audit evidence. So when we put together the audit criteria and the audit evidence, we will know whether it is meeting the requirement. If it meets, it's called a conformity. If it doesn't meet, it's a non-conformity. So evaluation happens at a process level in the form of audits. And when we do that, we look at requirements. But requirements also come at the product level also. See, in any organization, you can look at the whole performance in two ways. One, what is at a product level, what are the outcomes, uh, and how it is shaping from raw material to work in progress to finished products. So that's an assessment at a product level. Um, so that will answer what is being produced, uh, but the process is how is it being produced. So process level assessment uh, is done more rigorously as audit, and but for both there are what is called requirements. Requirements are the basis to do this evaluation. So looking at the process level requirements, see requirements are at multiple layers. Uh, See, once the organization decides to implement ISO 9000 or any management standard, the management standards specifications, its clauses, become compulsory. Until the time you decide not to implement ISO, it's optional. But the moment if you decide to implement ISO, the ISO clauses become compulsory. So that is a starting point. So what needs to be done day in day out under various processes will be defined from outside by ISO. It will also you have to and these requirements will be built into process documents or procedures because when you have procedures, documented manual, that's the way we can achieve standardized performance of the process by whoever comes into it. See, sometimes an experienced person may know how to do it as per the requirements, but if it's only in his mind, then two things will happen. There will be person dependence on that person, and B, when a new person comes or if it's a replacement, when the other person goes on leave, uh, then there could be variations in the performance of the process. To avoid this, you need to have documented manual. Manual is at the highest level. You have under the manual procedures or standard operating procedures. Now, when we build these procedures, write these procedures, we have to keep definitely the requirements of ISO have to be built into the procedures. And apart from ISO, there are two other categories of requirements. One is legal requirements. In certain businesses, when the organization is performing certain businesses, those businesses may have some legal requirements as per the central government or the local government. Okay. So those are legal requirements. And apart from legal requirements, there are something called regulatory requirements. Regulatory are at the second level, next to the legal requirements. That can be a sector level regulator. Maybe for banking, there'll be a central bank, or for health, there may be a health regulator. So the regulator also may give specific requirements. So that has to be built. So legal, regulatory, and ISO. So all these requirements have to be built into the manual and the process procedure documents. Over and above that, sometimes progressive managements may decide that they will they will go beyond what um, ISO regulatory requirements require. Maybe progressive managements, like in India, you have the Tata Group. The Tata Group may decide that ISO and legal requirements are okay, but I want to be more perfect. So they may come with a higher requirement. And if that is a decision, then the requirements of the management also have to be built into the procedures. So once these are all built into the procedures, that becomes the requirements. So um, under the procedure, and the auditor will have to look for this. The procedure document becomes the Bible and the audit criteria. So when you go for audit, you have to see whether all the activities are meeting the procedure. But there's another thing to check also. Sometimes is the procedure defined properly? That also an auditor's job to check that. Sometimes the management may miss out documenting some legal requirements or regulatory requirements. So the auditor has to see first whether the procedure meets the requirements of applicable ISO requirements, regulatory requirements, and legal requirements. And if it meets, then fine. The first stage is passed. Then you go to the field and see whether the defined procedures are being followed systematically. And if there's any variation, then it becomes a non-conformity. Monitoring and recording non-conformities is the beginning of the journey towards excellence. So progressive organizations that are keen on excellence will look at even the smallest non-conformity and they will take note of it and they will respond to that. Organizations that are not excellent or who are less professional, they won't care. So their non-conformities may occur. The organization won't bother about it, and they'll keep repeating. So I'm just telling you this contrast because monitoring non-conformities in a very sensitive level, recording them and then responding to them is the is the is the starting part of the journey towards excellence in every ISO management system. So when a non-conformity handles, what is the organization supposed to do? And ISO expects that there is a documented procedure how we respond to that. So the first one is take action to control it and correct it. Then when a non-conformity happens, there may be consequences. It may impact the customer or internal, or it may violate a law. So then we have to quickly understand what is the consequences of what went wrong, and you have to deal with the consequences. Next, the organization has to deal with uh, how to eliminate this, how to eliminate why this happened. So then need to review and analyze the non-conformity and identify its causes, and then see if similar. See, sometimes when a non-conformity has happened and we are finding it now, we need to see whether it's happening in other place, other parallelly in other parts of the organization, or did it possibly happen earlier and we missed it? So all that needs to be understood. And then once that's a diagnosis part of it, detection and diagnosis. And then next one is how do you respond to it? That's called, taking corrective action. I'll come to this in more detail in another slide. So the non-conformity has to be recorded and responded. So when we are doing this, um, once we identify the non-conformities, a professional approach requires that we do a root cause analysis, and the root cause analysis has to be done in a very documented way. And see, while it's a responsibility of the organization, it boils down to the process owner where the non-conformity happened. So under the audit cycle, the auditor will identify the non-conformity. The auditor will record the non-conformity and like a chart sent it to the process owner, and the process owner has to do a root cause analysis in a systematic, documented way to identify why it happened, and he should record that. Okay, so this is the diagnosis part of it. Because unless you understand the root cause of why it's happening, you'll not be able to fix that. Then having wrapped it, having diagnosed it, the next thing that ISO expects all management systems is that how do you handle the non-conformity? Now, the handling the non-conformity happens in three stages. The first one is take the immediate action to correct what happened. Maybe because of that, some customer may be unhappy, or maybe it violated a law. So the incident happened. So we have to correct the situation. Maybe go to the customer, apologize, replace the product. So some such action, that's called correction. But the next stage is to uh, take corrective action. Now, corrective action is how do you fix it? You need to understand the root cause of the non-conformity from the root cause analysis and fix it. No, so corrective action is that where you solve it at the root level. So, what is the guarantee that you have solved it at a root level? The guarantee will be if that same mistake or non-conformity does not repeat. So if it repeats, it means adequate corrective action has not been taken. So the proof of the pudding is the whatever non-conformity that we traced now, that should be the last step. It should not occur. Maybe some new non-conformities may happen in an unanticipated way. That's okay. That we will cross the bridge when we come to it. But whatever we identified, we should not repeat. This is part of making the organization a learning organization. See, like humans, the organization also has to learn from experience and improve itself. That's the purpose of this. Next is the third stage is preventive action, which is a very proactive one. Uh, how can the company or the process owner uh, should think, analyze in a proactive way to anticipate something before it goes wrong and solving it. So that is called preventive action. Corrective action and preventive action together constitute what is called continuous improvement, Kaizen. So Kaizen, that is corrective action, preventive action. That's the way by which the organization will become more and more professional. Whole journey starts from monitoring and recording non-conformities. So based on the audit criteria, the audit criteria, that is the legal requirement, management requirement, all that, there will be documented procedures. Now the documented procedures can be um, at multiple levels, at top level manual level, then at next level, like in program you have subroutines. So it's like each different area will be a procedure. Uh, Compartmentalizing will also be helpful because the procedure for the purchase department they will follow. They need not know about what's happening in production. So the responsibility is divided and assigned to different process owners. We don't call departments, we don't call department heads, we call processes and process owners. Um, and within a process, I mentioned in the earlier slide that process can consist of multiple activities. So if there are a lot of activities, then the manual for the procedure, a procedure document can be broken up further into work instructions for each set of activity, and you can have a documented work instruction. That's at a third level, but it's optional depending on the size of the organization. So in any case, what the document should be, the format, it doesn't matter. It can be any way, in any structured, unstructured manner. It could be diagrammatic or verbose. But what there are some essential items. What it needs to be is it should tell how the process has to be handled, what are the inputs to the process, what comes into the process, then how will it be processed, who will be doing it, whose job it is. If there are different roles in the process of the department, how will um, how will each of the roles perform that activity, and then the output also, where does it go, for whom it goes. So you need to document the context of how the process and all the activities within the process take place. This is part of what is called documented information. And another requirement is for each process you need to document what are the KPIs. How do you monitor whether the process is performing properly? There should be the documented KPIs. So this documentation of the KPIs will help the auditor to understand. So the auditor will look at the process document and look at the KPIs and go and check the KPIs whether the process is performing properly. And another thing that should be documented in the process documentation is what are the records? Records are the evidences. So there are records which the process owner needs to keep. It's a proof that they are doing the work to meet the requirements. So records need to meet ISO's requirements. Sometimes the law will also tell you need to keep these records mandatorily. So all that has to be built into the process document. So this graph tells very clearly how using the PDCA cycle, the plan do check act cycle, um, through rigorous audits and evaluations, the organization will identify non-conformities, fix them through corrective action, preventive action, which will translate into continual improvement. So and that way, with each audit cycle, the organization will move to a higher and higher level of quality improvement or excellence in in every management system. So this is the journey to achieve the highest levels. So the organization can start from anywhere, but eventually one day it will move to becoming a very excellent and professional organization. We come to what is called process capability. There is something, an excellent framework called capability maturity model. The capability maturity model is, uh, is to measure organizations before they start ISO management and also during the whole journey. So any most organizations when they initially their processes may be very unpredictable, it's uncontrolled means it gives haphazard outcomes. um, and the whole organization is reactive. It reacts uh, to problems and in a crisis mode. So if when we do an audit, if we find an organization is having all these characteristics, we can classify that organization as level one organization. Now, in level two, there is some improvement. Maybe the processes are getting defined, and it may move towards lesser variation, but still they are in a reactive mode. Okay. Somewhere half cooked. Okay. And then when you implement ISO and when ISO starts working properly, uh, that's when the organization will move towards level three, uh, where the processes will be well defined, they are well adhered to, and when it's well adhered to, the audits are happening properly, the reviews and evaluation are happening, then we will be getting more predictable results, and that's when the organization will be achieving baseline quality, and it will also be more proactive in its whole approach. When this cycle it stabilizes in the ISO management system, it has gone through 2 or 3 cycles of rigorous internal audit. Then the organization is ready to go for certification audit, and then it will you can classify it as ISO certified organization that's achieved level three. But the journey doesn't end with getting an ISO certificate. There's a long way there's a long way to go, or there's an opportunity to achieve higher levels. So the next big level is called level four, where things are managed in a very quantitative way. So if it's in quality, it will be using statistical quality control, Six Sigma. So those kind of frameworks. So the organization will move to a higher level of professionalism and maturity. So under Six Sigma, um, when the organization keeps doing things, it acquires proficiency and perfection, it will move from um, 1 sigma to 2 sigma to 3 sigma. It will keep on increasing its perfection, so the error rate will start falling. And Six Sigma has got another methodology which is called define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. This will also get blended into the ISO management system. Even though this is for quality, this can be adapted for other management systems like environment, cyber security also. And then the highest level, level 5. Level 5, we have something on the Toyota production system. The Toyota Lean Six Sigma system is considered to be at the highest level. And at that level, it's not just a mechanical, ritualistic part. It becomes deeper, more profound. Um, there is a deep-seated commitment to achieving excellence. So various elements of the Japanese management, the Toyota production system, and the Toyota Lean Six Sigma system uh, will be followed by organizations in all management systems. And coming to audits, we talked about non-conformity and how to handle non-conformity. Uh, it makes sense to look at how Toyota system handles that. So under the Toyota system, if there is an abnormality, a non-conformity, they stop the whole system. So it's a four-stage process. When they discover the non-conformity abnormality, they completely stop the process is the second stage. They fix the immediate problem, third stage, and move to the fourth, which is to remove the root cause. And that's how they achieve perfection. So this is also similar to what we talked earlier. The, the very big difference is they completely stop the process until they find what's the root cause. The process won't work. That's a very big difference. Uh, can it be implemented in most other businesses? It's you have to evaluate and see. But this is a Toyota management system best practice. I mentioned that it's not just a ritualistic. So uh, once a company or an organization moves towards higher excellence at the highest level, so it's almost like Maslow's highest level of self-actualization for individuals. This similar thing is for organizations. At that point, uh, achieving this requires a deep-seated and almost a philosophical commitment towards that's embedded into the Toyota system called four P's: uh, philosophy, process, people, partner, and problem solving. So this chart gives an idea of that. We could talk about it or analyze it in greater detail later, but just to leave this thought that ISO or quality or excellence is not just uh, getting some documents and ritualistically, mechanically doing certain things. It requires total commitment in letter and spirit. And if these are done, then there are, I mentioned yesterday about how ISO improves competitiveness. So these are various ways in which ISO standards bring huge real benefits to the organization. So those are mentioned in this chart. Thank you.